This is the Sachaqa Talk podcast from the Amazon rainforest, Peru. Today I'd like to talk with Toby and Lily. They're living in England and they have had such an amazing experience after leaving Sachaqa, and I'd like to express that in this podcast so we can share right from the beginning when they first came. They came to visit twice, so there's a lot to discuss, and very magical people, Lily and Toby. The first time I met them, I just knew that they were very old beings and that they're timeless, and you can just imagine them in the wicked and druid era in ancient England, happy, sat round the ruins, singing poetry and connecting with the nature spirits. They're very, very magical people, and we've bonded as we continue to bond with our projects. So, hi, Lily and Toby. So my question is, when you first got to Sachaqa, who were you then, and how did you develop into being clear about your future goals through the visit to Sachaqa? So let's start at the very beginning, when you first came here and how that experience was.
Hi Trina, thank you for that lovely introduction. That made me and Toby smile so much. So yeah, for your first question about where we were when we first came to the art centre, and what happened after our arrival. So just before coming to the art centre, I had just finished a fine art degree at university in London, and I was studying fine art and art history, and my work then was predominantly highly conceptual, large scale installations using ceramics and metalwork, and I consider them then like very cerebral, very much about materiality of the materials I was using, which was very sort of fashionable then. And coming to the jungle, my work completely changed in the first sort of week of being there. Everything that I thought was previously important or previously important in my artwork kind of fell away, and I experienced an unravelling both in my life and in my artistic practice, which is obviously entwined. And I think that was because of being able to really immerse myself in a very sensuous landscape for the first time. I had time to just be in the rainforest, on a piece of wild earth, alone with, my artistic practice, with my thoughts, and I started to really communicate with the land there, and that was very profound and a huge change to anything I'd experienced previously in my life. So that was really where a very big transformation started to happen for me in my life, and it was incredibly healing, as you well know. And so since then, that was sort of a catalyst of a huge journey of healing and transformation that's happened over the past 6 years and will continue to happen for the rest of my life, I'm sure. But now, looking at just my artistic practice, I work now mainly with heritage craft and ancient handwork practices using like fibre. So I'm a hand weaver and I make clothing and tapestries. Me and Toby design and construct our own looms that I weave on, and I also hand spin my yarn that I use to weave, and I have just embarked on a journey of using the plants on the land on Dartmoor in Devon in the UK, here to dye all of my yarns that I will then be weaving with in the future. But I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about that later. Over to you, Toby.
And for me, I was training to be a psychoanalyst at the time, and I went to the jungle thinking it was a great opportunity to work out which of a couple of different paths and directions, areas of specializing that I would be focusing on when I got back. And I sat with the question a lot, and the more time I spent there, the more I realized that it was not an option that I had come with, and that I was there to kind of fundamentally readdress what was important to me. And I'd been making before then. I'd always written, but I'd been making a little bit. I liked making people's birthday presents, Christmas presents out of wood, and it was kind of there that I really realized how much joy making brought me. And I'm a carpenter now, and I still write as well, but it's the sort of, I just can't really conceive of a life where I wouldn't work with wood on a daily basis. It brings me so much joy. And I think it was being there and having the sort of support and that sort of communal sharing that is so wonderful in the jungle. And yeah, it allowed me to realize what was really important. Again, there was a lot of healing going on, as Lil said, and that was certainly linked to it. And it led me to realize that were I to sort of be in a healing position for others, that it wasn't going to ever be in a clinician's room in a street in London, that it was going to be holding space and helping people to connect with the wilderness, and really to not provide the healing, but just to maybe allow people to find the healing that is so abundant when we stop for a second, when we take a step back from our routines, when we allow ourselves to realize that the questions we came with are the wrong questions, or at least any of the answers we thought we'd find were not there to be found, and the real answer was something we had no idea about. And of course it also set us on the journey towards building our own artist residence in the UK, and that's what we're doing now, and it's what brings us so much joy.
So I know that you and Toby worked with plant medicine. Can you speak a little bit about that and tell us how that affected your life and your art practice as well, and how it shaped what you do now, which we'll talk about in the next chapter.
So for me, working with the plants in Peru and working with the plant medicines, it was healing on many, many levels, healing in my physical body very profoundly, healing my emotional and spiritual bodies very profoundly. So that was a huge step for me in my life. But I think the thing that really struck me was to be really entrenched in a culture that honours the earth-based wisdom, the ancient earth-based wisdom, and it's still very much alive and very much at the forefront in Peru. Their communication with the earth, their communication with the plants, the honouring of the earth and the honouring of the plants is very much alive. And coming from the UK, where a lot of this wisdom has been lost, there is a resurgence, and there has been, but the ancient practices were killed off in our past. So to actually experience that ancient culture, that ancient wisdom, still very much alive and very much helping people today, that was an absolute revelation. And I think the challenge was coming back to the UK after experiencing that, not having a similar access to the same the same ceremonies and medicines as in Peru. Both me and Toby found that challenging, but actually it gave us this incredible opportunity to speak to the earth here in the UK and connect with a lot of practitioners that are working here in the UK with the local plants and with the local landscapes. So to sort of continue the healing and the learning that we had begun very deeply in Peru, both Toby and I have gone on to really deepen our practice in prayer and communicating with the land here in the UK through many different ways, but very much looking at the unique feeling and the unique experience of working with the plants here in England, and actually living on Dartmoor in Devon in England. We've been here for 2 years now, and being able to get to know the plants in the locality, just surrounding our house very, very deeply, walking every day, praying every day on the land, getting to know individual trees, their unique feeling, their unique wisdom that comes with them, the weather patterns here, the different birds that come at different times of the year, the animals that we meet, and really going deeply into getting to know this our local area, and actually going to Peru and communing with the plants there really helped me to see that I needed to very deeply root myself in England and understand the plants here in England. So it led to a huge shift, and maybe one that I wasn't expecting when I was very happy backpacking and travelling around the world, was to hear that in my intuition that I needed to go and root myself in England again. So I'm very grateful for that now. And I'm standing here in the garden while I record this, and everything's just burst open into green in the springtime, and that's really bringing me a huge amount of joy. And I'm watching the blackbirds nesting in the rose bush, flying in and out as we speak. Over to you, Toby.
And for me, I was already on a healing journey, and I had been for some time, but working with the plants just completely shifted what that meant to me and removed so many constraints I'd unknowingly placed on what I thought healing could be. I'd spent a lot of time working with my own history, poring through things, trying to work out the paths to my thinking processes, and suddenly I was presented with this wisdom that was ancient beyond belief, and I realized that there was so much to be found in ancient history rather than just childhood, and it kind of connected me with that. It removed a lot of my cynicism, I think. I would have been, maybe years before would have been judgmental and would have just reduced everything to psychological processes. But it allowed me to remove a lot of my preconceptions and really connect with this whole other way of being and growing. And that fundamentally changed how I created as well, and how I wrote. Like I used to write for me, really, if I'm being honest, and suddenly I found myself increasingly writing for the earth, writing for the ancestors, and even at times, hopefully, allowing them to write through me.
Right then, Lily and Toby, thank you so much for this amazing podcast about your life-changing experience. Could you please now tell us about the project that you're developing there in Devon, and when you'll be accepting artists to come and stay in the residency that you're doing there, and what is your vision for this project that you're doing, and how important do you think it will be for the British art scene? Do you know any other artist residencies in the UK that are offering a similar thing, or will it be unique within itself?
So Toby and I realised quite a long time ago that our calling was to hold space for creatives in the natural world, and that was where a lot of our strengths lie. So it felt natural to try to create a space for this in the UK, in England, which is where we were called to, and specifically we were called to Dartmoor to do this. So 2 years ago we found the ancient small holding that we now live on called Route Rundle. It was the second house that we looked at when we began our physical search for houses, and we realised as soon as we walked up the sort of mile-long ancient trackway to the house on the moor that this was our sole home. We just both were absolutely speechless and felt completely at home, probably for the first times in our life, and we knew this was the place that we needed to create the artist residence. So it's a over 600-year-old farmstead, probably nearer to 1,000 years old. It's listed in the Domesday Book and is surrounded by the footprints of Bronze Age roundhouses, medieval farmstead ruins. So people have been living in and around this site forever, and it feels like a huge, very, very humbling to live somewhere so ancient, and to have the reminders of our deep ancestry all around us. So at Route Rundle, we would love to invite creatives, people who want to access the natural world, somewhere very rural. We would like to invite people to stay here, to maybe find a new way of thinking about their practice, to step back from their day-to-day routine, from their day-to-day lives, without any pressure on their practice, with no pressure from making, and really to delve deeply into being close to the earth in such a rural place. We have no neighbours for miles, and moorland stretches out all around us. You can see no other houses. To live here, you really are intertwined with the natural world in a way that I never had been for a sustained amount of time until I moved here. Dartmoor really is a very, very magical place, very, very alive. The amount of animal, insect and bird life here is incredible, and the moorland itself has such unique characteristics that it can be a really profound place to stay, especially if you're getting in touch with an aspect of your artistic practice that maybe you can't access, say if you're working in a city or a town, or with deadline or restraints in your practice. We're completely off-grid here. We get our energy from a wind turbine and solar panels. We have a borehole for our water, so we drink the most beautiful moorland fresh water, and that gives us, I think, an even larger step back from city and town life, being off-grid. It also brings us much more face-to-face with where our energy comes from and how we consume, which has been really a revelation for both me and Toby, really going down the route of renewable energy since being here. I'm in the process of planting edible gardens and medicinal gardens here, which will be a project for the rest of my life, I'm sure. So eating food from the ground here will be something that develops in the future. And we're hoping to cultivate more of the small holding side as well as the artistic studios. So it'll be really exciting to see how that develops in the future. Obviously, people here will be working alongside me and Toby. Toby's a carpenter. He makes both practical and artistic things from wood. He's a poet, and I'm sure he'll tell you more about that. And like I said before, I'm a hand weaver, fibre artist and natural dyer, as well as dabbling in poetry and also performance art. So I'm sure people with interests in learning about those crafts would find it interesting to come here as well. We have actually opened the residency for applicants. That's all been put on hold at the moment because of coronavirus and the effect that's having on people's lives. So we've put a pause on opening for now, and we're just dedicating our time in really nourishing this land and deepening our connection to the land directly surrounding our house and the moorland around here, which has been a deeply nourishing gift to come out of the coronavirus that's spread across the world. When the quarantine is lifted, we are working together at the moment to find ways we can support artists that have been adversely affected by the coronavirus. And we're working out ways we can provide artists with space to recuperate, space to maybe recuperate their stock, and also have time of reflection and healing in nature. So that's something that me and Toby are talking a lot about at the moment, and we will make public what we can offer when the quarantine is lifted, as I know that this time will have adversely affected many creatives out there. So I wonder if, Toby, do you have anything else you'd like to share about our vision of this residency as it comes into fruition?
Thanks, Lils. Yeah, just to add that what I think from our experience of talking to other artists and looking in the UK ourselves, what separates us from a lot of the residencies available is that we are trying to resist pinning down what we do here too much, becoming too certain of what this place is or what the parameters are for who we invite to visit us here, who we invite to stay, what we expect of people when they're here. I think, as we said before, it was important for us when we first visited the jungle to take a step back from what we were doing. And so we don't want to place any demands on people to be hyper productive here, or to, commit to gallery shows or anything like that, or do something that will increase the prestige of the institution, which seems to be what a lot of residencies end up being about. It's, if people want to come here and make more work than they've ever made in their life and put on a gallery show, then we can facilitate that. But if people want to come and just breathe in the land here and feel that ancient power that Lily was talking about, then we're open for that as well. For what we increasingly realize is that the heart of our mission here is to be an opening, to be a doorway We're surrounded here by these devastatingly beautiful granite tors, which are these sort of granite topped hillocks, and Tor in German means door. And the more time we spend here, the more we see ourselves as gatekeepers, as guardians of these ways towards connecting with something that is so desperate to connect. And whoever is drawn here to connect, then we want to be here to welcome. And while they're here, if we get to work alongside them and learn from them and help each other to grow our practices, then all the better. But in everything we do here, we try and remind ourselves that we're here to sing the praises of this land. So after talking about us setting up the residency here and what we feel our role in all of that is, I'd like to share a couple of short poems, one from when we first moved here and one from more recently, about our relationship to the house, to the amazing tours and to the land here. This first one's called Ingra Tor is the name of the studios and the name of the tor that overlooks us. Ingra. Speak the leaving, letting her to dust. Fill the quarry whole with uncomplicated thought. Walk the track, who carried off the stone. Hear the moorland bellow on the fires of your soul. Build a home, a stone home, a bone home from which to roam. Build a lonely tower, let your hearthlight glow. Open the tower door to the stranger on the moor. Let the speaking of your meeting fill the quarry whole. And this next one's about an older tree. An older tree is a very special type of tree, as are all trees, but it moves to barren and unloved patches and gets in before anything else because it can grow off very little and draws nutrients into the soil, replenishes, and paves the way for abundance. Older. A branch of older tree squats a chance to wider be, a dream to seek an unkempt patch, to rouse numb feet by water's lap, to draw in good to ravished soil, breed lavish mud through ardent toil. A branch of older tree, who sees the chance to wider be.
So maybe people coming from, countries that have a lot of the Western conveniences, like I had one lady who came to Sachaqa and she was like really looking forward to her dishwasher when she got home, for example, or the hot showers and those kind of things that for some reason I don't even think about anymore. I don't even bother about the mosquitoes either. I'm sat in the garden right now and they're biting me and I just don't think about it. I mean, I walk up the hill now carrying all of my shopping and I don't whinge about it and I don't think, oh, well, it'd be so nice. And I've never thought it'd be so nice to get in my car and to drive home with the children screaming, because they didn't want to walk up the hill and things. I've always just kind of accepted that as being part of this life. And also I'm not kind of a person to moan about what I haven't what I haven't got and to dwell on what I haven't got. I'm more of a proactive person on dealing with what I have got right now. But the thing is though that, you know, I just have this fulfillment and this peace in the lifestyle that I've chosen. And for me, it's not a sacrifice. I live in a state of gratitude for having what I have every day. And I know that you and Lily and Toby also feel that way. But what I'm getting at in this question, I guess, is, you know, like if somebody in the UK who has that kind of lifestyle where they have the dishwasher and they've got the car and, you know, they're not living miles and miles away from the neighbours and the school, and they don't have to walk anywhere, and they don't have to chop up wood to make their house warm, and grow vegetables instead of going to the supermarket. I just wondered what you feel. I just want to get more of a feel of that life that you've chosen, and how, you know, and how that could be, I'm not saying nothing is better, but a more fulfilling choice, and what that involves, you know, in your daily world of just, you know, I'm sure that people, especially in the UK, would be fascinated to know what kind of daily lifestyle inconveniences were involved in the sustainable lifestyle, and also, like, you know, why do that, why choose that, you know, what do you get out of it ultimately. Let's get down to those kind of questions about sustainability. And yeah, so that's my question. What are your daily sacrifices, Lily and Toby, so that we can answer that in that podcast, and for us all to get more of an idea of your lifestyle choices. Thank you.
In terms of becoming more intimately entwined in the landscape here, the first year we moved here, we dedicated to observation. We decided we wouldn't touch any plant in the garden, we wouldn't plant anything, we wouldn't cut anything down. We would spend a year observing what plant life and what animal life lived in the area around the home, in our gardens and in the paddocks that are attached to it. And we really felt that was a very important thing, just to observe and bear witness and sit in respect to all of the beings that we live alongside here. After this year has passed, we're now planning to cultivate an edible food forest in amongst the trees that have been planted by the house, to create more diversity for the animal and insect life that lives here, and also to provide food for us and the artists that come and stay here. We have just started to plant some vegetable gardens and fruit gardens, which will be using permaculture principles, and we hope that will feed us and also the artists that come and stay. And we are really moving towards more self-sufficiency here. In other areas of the land, it would again be tending to the diversity and really just tending to every part of the land with using our heart space and our intuition to work slowly. And I know that this will be a lifetime's work. So we are going slowly and carefully, and hopefully bringing some love to paddocks that have been untouched for probably over 50 years. So it's been quite an incredible experience to venture into these wild paddocks and see who is dwelling there. Around the studio, which is a barn in the garden, I'm planning to plant a a dye plant garden to explore more of the natural pigments that naturally exist in the UK. And I'll be using those to dye local fleeces and other fibres to then weave with. So for me, it's really about becoming very close to the landscape here and creating things that are very much from this landscape, using the colours that naturally occur, using the fibres and creating tapestries and wearable weavings that are very much entrenched in this land. And I think that will further deepen our relationship with this landscape. I've just begun to process my first Dartmoor white face fleeces and weave with them, which has been incredible. And to wear the products that come from the this yarn on the landscape has been an incredibly grounding and really sacred experience. And it feels very right, and it's something I've been wanting to do for many years, so I'm excited to have started that journey. It feels very poignant to be working on such ancient heritage crafts that our very, very ancient ancestors were working on, to be resurrecting those now in such an ancient landscapes feels very, very important and very poignant. Because the small holding here that we live on, Rat Rundle, people have probably been living here for up to maybe 1,000 years. The house itself was listed in the Domesday Book, so there was definitely people living here over 600 years ago. Surrounding the property are the remains of Bronze Age roundhouses, medieval farmsteads, and the landscape here, it still has the remains of very, very ancient communities. So it's a very, very interesting place to live, a very interesting place to work, and our understanding of these communities that lived around here will deepen as we spend our lives here. There's a lot of evidence of ritual spaces. There's very near to our house is Merivale Stone Rose, which is one of the longest standing stone rows in the UK. And there are burial cairns around our house of ancient communities' burial sites. So the ritual landscape around here is very rich and very ancient. So it's an extremely interesting place to work on visionary artwork, my visionary tapestries and Toby's poetry. An interesting place to delve deeply into these ancient heritage crafts such as fibre spinning and weaving, and we think that the artists that come here will be very interesting to see how they connect to this ancient landscape and the ancient ritual places that surround the land. So thinking about your question about us transitioning to being off-grid and the lifestyle that comes with that. So we moved here 2 years ago, and the transition was challenging. We had to make a lot of changes in the way we lived and a lot of changes in what we deemed to be our normal before. Obviously, we moved from what people would consider a normal house in the UK, with all the services brought in and paying our bills to the electric companies and water and gas, to coming to a very rural small holding where we get our electric from a wind turbine and solar panels. Our water comes from a borehole which is connected to the water table, so we get water straight from the earth around the house, which is wonderful. The water is so beautifully pure here, it's incredible. It really is a medicine. And I guess for us, the biggest thing that came with moving off grid was really being more in tune with the elements and the land around us. We are intimately aware of the weather patterns, when it's windy, when it's sunny, what direction we're facing in that can get the most light onto our solar panels, and how we live in response to the changing weather patterns as well. We generate more electric when it is sunny and when it is windy. So we're always intimately intertwined with the weather in that respect, which really is an incredible experience, and we feel closer to the land here. And I'm sure as the years go by, that relationship will deepen, and we'll come to know the weather patterns year to year more intimately. We heat our house with a wood pellet boiler. So that uses pellets that are created from the waste products of sawmills, and we fill up the boiler which burns those pellets, and that heats our home and also all of the hot water that we use in the house. And it's an incredibly eco-friendly way of heating the house here in the UK, where it does get very cold, so we need to make sure that we can heat the house. We also have wood burning fires, so we use logs, local logs. We hope to start processing our own wood as the years go by here. So in general, there are challenges in getting used to being intimately intertwined with the services in your home, but in general, the benefits really outweigh any of the challenges, as we really feel that we appreciate all of the services that come into our home, because we are intertwined in heating our water, in creating the electric. We see the wind turbine turning, and that really is an incredible experience. And I do think that it's a very human experience to be so intimately linked to all of those things, and we do feel more grounded in being human on the earth. And I do think that this will deepen the longer that we are here.
Thank you, Lily and Toby, for your amazing account of your Sachaqa experience and telling us a little bit more about the residencies you're offering there in the UK. Well, I'll leave all the details of your website and information so people can find you. And just quickly let us know if you have any residencies coming up or have any opportunities for artists who would like to visit you. And finally, can you just sum up your Sachaqa experience in 3 words, and then we'll leave it there. But yeah, thanks guys. You're an inspiration to us all, and you have done it in England, which it's just so amazing how you've done it, and you've got the amazing perfect piece of land, and and you're guided by spirit, it seems, to get all you need, and you're abundant. So beautiful people, and I'd love to see you again one day. If not, I'll come and visit you there in the UK and paint. I'd love to go and paint in your new studio and christen the place, and go and see the ruins there, and listen to Toby reciting poetry by the ruins. That'd be so lovely. Yeah, thank you very much, and I hope to see you again soon.
To sum up our time at Sachaqa in 3 words, I would say cleansing, deepening, and human. Thank you, Trina.